If you've been on the internet at all for the past decade, you've probably heard of Markiplier. You may even remember a video from a few years ago where he went through every Pokemon at the time in Smash or Pass. This set a bit of a trend where a bunch of YouTubers, even ones not known for Pokemon, did the same thing. What surprised me though was how few videos there were on Nuzlocke using Pokemon that Markiplier deemed smashable. So you can imagine what this video is going to be. I'll be playing through Pokemon Black 2 with hardcore Nuzlocke rules, with the additional rule that I can only use the most smashable Pokemon, as deemed by Markiplier. In Black 2, there's 19 possible encounters that fit the bill, so we'll have to be very careful with managing our resources. At the very start of our journey, we aren't given any options smashable enough to make the cut, so we'll be releasing the starter once we do have something eligible. Thankfully that doesn't take long, as we only need to make it to Flacacia Ranch to truly start this adventure, and I think it's fitting that this very interestingly shaped patch of grass is where we get our real starter, Pidove. Now, technically Pidove itself isn't a smash, but both Tranquil and Unpheasant are. Since they evolve outside of the level cap though, I'll be allowing pre-evolutions of eligible encounters until one of the actual encounters is available. That being said, Pidussi won't be going it alone for long, as Livussi the Sawaddle joins the team on Route 20. Despite forgetting to heal beforehand, the rival, Pass, wasn't much of an issue, and we can press on. After getting stopped by Guy Fieri, we can head back to our hometown to challenge the first gym. Charen is a bit of a pushover, as Livussi can bug bite until in danger of dying to a crit, at which point I can just switch into Pidussi to quick attack for the win. The new level cap doesn't allow for any evolutions yet, but we do have one more encounter that pretty much trivializes the next gym. In Virbank Complex, we can catch a Magnemite. Steel types are even more powerful in Gen 5 than they are in the present day, so this is a phenomenal encounter. Oh, and it almost killed both existing team members, but Magnetussi was ultimately captured. All that's left is to go and fight the best gym in the series. What makes this gym so good, you ask? Well... Roxy leads with a Coughing, which Magnemite takes out with a couple of Sonic Booms, leaving her with just Whirlipede remaining. After taking a light pursuit, Magnemite uses Thunder Wave to paralyze Whirlipede. I make the decision to switch into Pidove to make things go a little bit quicker, who ends up coming in for free since Roxy went for another pursuit, which Magnemite ended up taking. Pidove goes for Air Cutter, nearly one-shotting with a critical hit, and Venoshock in return does a significant chunk of damage, but Pidove is still in a great position. A Super Potion from Roxy means that Quick Attack won't kill anymore and also triggers Poison Point, but thankfully I gave Pidove a Petra Berry before the battle just in case. I act a bit reckless here by going for Air Cutter since a Venoshock crit would take Pidussi down, but Whirlipede is fully paralyzed and goes down to one more Air Cutter. I probably should have just done that whole battle with Magnemite, but we pulled through deathless nonetheless. After a short detour to follow my true calling, I can finally get some smash-worthy Pokemon. The new level cap allows Pidove to evolve into Tranquil, as well as Sawaddle into Swadloon, and after a little bit of, RNG manipulation, max out Swadloon's friendship to evolve into Leavanny immediately. This also means that Magnemite has to go back in the box, since it's only smashable when there's 3 of them, so for now we're rocking a squad of 2. One quick run-in with Team Plasma later, and we're on a boat to Castelia City. After exploring the city for a bit, I gain access to the sewers to look for Team Plasma with Pass. We find a couple of grunts and then prepare to search for more when Berg pops out and says there was no one suspicious beyond here, which is perhaps the single most suspicious thing you could say, especially since he then immediately urges us to leave, but I guess that's just me. Sure enough, the most suspicious person I've ever seen in my life pops up from the place that Berg assured us had no suspicious people in it, and we let him walk by. Whatever, man. In Relic Passage, I can catch a wild Timber, though as the name suggests, Concussy is going to be waiting in the box until he can evolve into a Conkeldurr. Navigating the sewers once again leads us to a small park in Castelia City, which is home to yet another new teammate, Beniri, who we named That one's a bit blatant, huh? Nevertheless, since Beniri evolves with high friendship as well, we can RNG manipulate her to evolve into Lopunny with just 1 level. The last thing I need to do here is pick up the leftovers from the sewer and get the Eviolite from the scientist. Now it's time to take our team of 3 and make our way through the gym. Berg starts with Swadloon, so I figure that Tranquil can easily one-shot the bug with Air Cutter. Unfortunately, his adamant nature keeps him from getting the one-shot, letting Swadloon go for String Shot. This makes Berg use his Hyper Potion as Tranquil uses Quick Attack. As it turns out, one String Shot wasn't enough for Swadloon to take the speed advantage, so another Air Cutter finally gets the job done. Now we have my main concern for this fight, Dwebble. Rock is a troublesome type for our current team, so this little dude could end up being a real headache. Though Tranquil can definitely hold his own for at least a little while thanks to the Eviolite. Swadloon's string shot pays off now, as Dwebble now outspeeds Pedussi and hits him with Smackdown. Air Cutter does good damage, but that adamant nature is rearing its ugly head again, as it looks like it won't be enough for a 2-shot. To keep Berg from healing, I go for Quick Attack first to do the tiny bit of extra damage we need for Air Cutter to pick up the kill. Though not before a crit brings Pedussi to just 10 HP. I would love to hit Leavanny with a 4x super effective Air Cutter, but Tranquil would probably get us fed and almost certainly die before getting to fire it off, so I have to switch. I bring in Lockbunny on a cut, though her health leftovers helps offset some of that damage. Return does solid damage as Leavanny lowers our speed, letting Lockbunny restore a bit more health with leftovers. Leavanny outspeeds now and lands a Razor Leaf before another return makes him eat his Citrus Berry, healing out of range of another return killing. But either way, it looks like we're in the clear now, as Lopunny can just Quick Attack to snag the KO after one more return. A critical hit Razor Leaf does just enough damage to kill Lopunny, marking the first death of the run. This was unlucky to be sure, but I definitely could have played this differently earlier in the battle, but hindsight is 20/20. In any case, our own Leavanny can outspeed and clean up with a Bug Bite, winning us the battle. At least I don't have to worry about the nickname anymore. It always sucks to lose him on, but losing Lopunny right now makes the immediate future much more challenging. The next fight we have is against Colress, who uses Steel types. My Flying, Bug, and Grass moves aren't gonna cut it. However, there's still hope. Our new level cap is 30, which is exactly when Magnemite evolves into Magneton, who we can actually use. I ultimately decide to level my team closer to the level cap than I was initially planning to, just to give us a leg up on Colress's team. With the team's levels so high now, we need to get new team members to spread out the experience a bit to keep them from over-leveling. Luckily, there's actually a few encounters we can get right now. The first of which requires some light time traveling since the static Mandibuzz on Route 4 only appears on Thursdays. Normally, Volibee doesn't evolve until after level 50, so we wouldn't have been able to even use Mandibuzz until the very end game, were it not for this event. Unfortunately though, this Mandibuzz has its hidden ability, Weak Armor, which lowers its defense and raises its speed when it gets hit, which doesn't work well with Mandibuzz's otherwise defensive base stats. It also always has a quiet nature, which lowers its speed, so this whole set is just a complete mess. But an encounter's an encounter. Moving on, we can go to the Desert Resort to grab Sigilith and make a beeline for Nimbasa. We immediately want to head east to catch a Gothita on Route 16, who we'll be able to use later, and then head into Lostlorn Forest. Here, we can catch a Cottony, who isn't on Mark's list of smashable Pokemon. However, if we backtrack back to Route 4 once again, we can trade the Cottony for a Petalil named Petulia, who I can't rename without more RNG manipulation, and I really can't be bothered, so it is what it is. And with a Sunstone obtained from an NPC in Nimbasa City, we have another viable team member in Lilligant. Also, quick side note, but did you know that Nintendo did a really bad job with trying to censor the phrases you could say in Join Avenue? With encounters out of the way, we have a full team of 6 to challenge Elisa with. Granted, half of them are flying type, but the half that aren't actually resist electric, so this shouldn't be too bad. Elisa starts with Emolga as we lead with Magneton. Emolga goes for Quick Attack before getting Thundershock for half of its health. Elisa then hard switches out despite knowing Volt Switch, and brings in Zebstrika, who gets a speed boost from the incoming Thundershock thanks to its ability. I don't have much for Zebstrika, plus this thing knows a fire type move in Flame Charge, so I decide to switch. My plan here was to send in a flying type on the Flame Charge and bait out Volt Switch for Lilligant to switch in on. Instead, Zebstrika opts for a Resisted Pursuit, which, even with double damage, does next to nothing. Really thought they'd have fixed that whole speed control AI quirk by Gen 5. It would have been nice to have swapped into Lilligant on that, but we're here now. I follow through with the plan and send in Lilligant as Zebstrika does indeed go for Volt Switch, swapping out to Flaffy. Now Petulia is free to set up a Quiver Dance, though she does get paralyzed in the process, and then knock Flaffy out with Giga Drain. Zebstrika comes in and uses Flame Charge while Lilligant is fully paralyzed. It follows up with a Quick Attack, but Lilligant breaks through this time and heals nearly all of her health with the Giga Drain. Zebstrika barely holds on and heals with a Citrus Berry, but one more Giga Drain knocks it out, leaving Elisa with just a Emolga left. Lilligant takes a pursuit on the switch out to Magneton, who finishes the battle with one more Thundershock. With the Bolt badge in hand, we can head over to Driftveil City. On the drawbridge leading up to it, we can catch Swanussi the Ducklet, who, of course, has to go in the box for now. After learning about the drama happening within Team Plasma, we can fight Rude, one of Team Plasma's former sages. Pass shows up, yells at an old man, and then leaves before we're gifted Zorua, who we can actually evolve into Zoroark and use right away. This is another Pokemon that I can't rename without RNG manipulation, so count your blessings. The final encounter for now is on Route 7, where we actually get the rare encounter, Shelmet, instead of Carablast, though both are going to be available by the end of the game anyway. And believe it or not, that just leaves the next gym already. Clay is always a scary fight, but our team is pretty stacked to deal with ground types, so let's get right to the battle. The lead matchup is Livussi against Krokorok. Bug Bite one-shots the Croc even with an Intimidate drop, leading Clay to send in Excadrill right away. Leavanny can stay in for one turn to use Bug Bite and steal Excadrill's Citrus Berry, taking a Bulldoze in return. This is when I realized my mistake. I didn't bring Magneton to the fight since it's 4x weak to ground, but that's actually exactly why I should have brought it. While Magneton is weak to ground, it's my only Pokemon currently that resists Rock, which makes it perfect for pivoting in this fight. Instead, I have to hard switch to Petulia and tank a Rock Slide, which ends up missing, letting her come in unscathed. A Sleep Powder unfortunately misses, which lets Excadrill use Bulldoze, followed by a Metal Claw now that it outspeeds. Thankfully, the next Sleep Powder connects, giving me some room to breathe. Lilligant can use Synthesis on a guaranteed sleep turn to get back to nearly full HP. I think over my options for a moment before deciding to swap to Sagussi to try to set up a Reflector Tailwind. Excadrill, however, immediately wakes up and lands a Metal Claw. Now we're in a very tough spot. The only Mon I have that can take a Rock Slide even remotely well is Lilligant, so that's really my only switch. Rock Slide still does decent damage to Lilligant, and now we have to pray that she lands another Sleep Powder. Which she does. Now I do what I should have done from the start and just hit the damn thing. Lilligant's Giga Drain does over half of Excadrill's health as he continues to snooze. 2 Giga Drains later, and both Excadrill and Clay's final Pokemon, Sandslash, are both down and we win the Quake badge despite some nearly fatal overthinking on my part. At Clay's request, we take part in the PWT, which leads to Pass chasing after Team Plasma again. A couple of grunt battles later and an evil Pokemon team does the unthinkable. They kick us out of their base despite having lost the Pokemon battle. Damn, that was incredibly effective. With no other options, we continue on towards Mistralton City. We get the Surf HM from Charon, get barked at by this weird dog, and then head into Chargestone Cave. We don't have any new encounters in this cave, but we do have a near-death experience caused by this random Archon, so that's pretty cool. After making it to Mistralton City, we meet Professor Juniper face-to-face for the first time, and she casually hands us a Master Ball before leaving to continue her research like it was nothing. Skyla's gym is a cakewalk thanks to Magneton, so we quickly make it to the gym leader herself. Against Skyla, we lead with Magneton as she starts with Swoobat. Just kidding, I lied to you. We led with Zoroark disguised as Magneton and used Foul Play to one-shot the Swoobat. That's what you get for trusting someone on the internet, bozo. As Swanna comes in, Zoroark goes for U-turn, which he can relearn with a Heart Scale, by the way, and send in the real Magneton. A couple of Bubble Beams hurt, but Magnetussi's Eviolite lets it take them with ease. By the way, we normally would have a Magnezone by now, since Magneton evolves in the Chargestone Cave, but Magnezone is not a smash, even though Magneton is, and I don't think Markiplier even knows why.
Pass. Smash. But why?
Anyway, all that to say, Magnetussi is going to remain a Magneton for the rest of the run. Anyway, back to the battle. Magneton one-shots Swanna with Volt Switch, and I bring in my own Swanna as Skyla sends out her last Pokemon, Skarmory. Skarmory can't do much to Swanna, so we take it down with a couple of Surfs. Now that we have 6 badges, I decide that it's time to evolve Timber. Some of you might have been curious on what I was going to do with trade evolutions, but thanks to my RNG manipulation, Girder evolves into Conkeldurr at level 37. Once we go and get Professor Juniper, who gives us another valuable item because she feels like it, we can get on Skyla's plane and fly to Lentimas Town. We work our way through Twist Mountain with Bianca and arrive in Undella Town. And at this point, I finally realized that Gothita can actually evolve all the way to Gothitelle under this new level cap, adding another powerhouse to our roster. We can then catch Wailmer in Undella Bay and evolve it into Wailord at level 40. Yes, Wailord did get a smash from Markiplier. We have a quick battle with Pass, which was completely risk-free, and head to Route 13 where the weird dog barks at us again. We listen to an old lady tell us about a dragon that eats people past 8 PM, so it's a good thing that it was 11:30 PM. I'm sure it's fine. There's some more Team Plasma shenanigans to take care of, most notably the first fight against Zinzalin, but it's all pretty tame. This opens the way to Route 12 where we can find a female Combi after only 30 minutes of searching. We can also catch a Lapras by searching over rippling water at the village bridge, which we luckily find very quickly to make up for the Combi. Lapras does try to kill itself, cringe, but our cool Aunt Professor Juniper gave us a Master Ball to use at times like this. Now, with encounters and evolutions out of the way, that just leaves one thing left to do. Time to get our 7th gym badge and challenge Drayden. This was the first gym this run where the trainers leading up to the leader were actually somewhat problematic. I'm able to navigate the battles without losing any team members, but there were definitely some close calls, which doesn't bode well for what the big man himself has in store. Nevertheless, we press on and start the penultimate gym leader battle. Drayden leads with his Druddigon. My strategy for this battle is pretty straightforward. Lead with Lapras and keep clicking Ice Beam until I can't anymore. This game plan proves to be very effective against Druddigon, who goes down after just a bit of heal stalling. Next up is Flygon. I completely write this mon off since an Ice Beam will kill it 3 times over, but Rock Slide does do a lot of damage. Lapras does have shell armor and can't be crit, but an untimely flinch would have thrown a wrench in the plan, definitely. Thankfully, we avoid that, and Lapras can just take Flygon down, leaving Drayden with just one Pokemon left, Haxorus. This beast of a Pokemon is terrifying, and Lapras isn't in a position to safely deal with it after the damage from Flygon. I switch directly to Magneton, but Haxorus goes for Dragon Tail, forcing another swap. Lilligant gets dragged out, which is probably the best case scenario here. A Sleep Powder connects and puts Haxorus to sleep, burning the first turn of Burning the first turn of sleep immediately. He stays asleep for another 2 turns, letting Mandibuzz come in and set up a Tailwind, risk-free. Now that she outspeeds, Mandibuzz can use Dark Pulse to whittle away and try for a flinch, but Haxorus sets up with Dragon Dance. I'm still no expert on the AI in these games, but setting up that Tailwind might have just bit me in the ass. Haxorus outspeeds us now and uses Slash, dealing minor damage, but also triggering Mandibuzz's ability. Dark Pulse knocks Haxorus below half health, letting him eat his Citrus Berry. Now, with weak armor lowering Mandibuzz's defense, there's a chance that Haxorus can kill us with a Dragon Tail. However, we also outspeed him once again, so it's possible that he wants to set up another Dragon Int. This is the last turn of Tailwind too, so no matter who I switch into, they'll get outsped next turn. There's also the passive recovery from leftovers to take into consideration, which honestly might be the difference in Mandibuzzi being able to take an attack here. But there's also the chance of flinching with Air Slash. So
Dark Pulse didn't flinch, Dragon Tail didn't kill, and now Lilligant's in.
Oh. Well, no matter what, Lilligant can take 1 hit and go for Sleep Powder, so next turn she can just Giga Drain, leaving Haxorus with 1 HP. That's fine though, because the healing from Giga Drain should make Haxorus want to go for Dragon Tail, since that's the only move that kills, barring a crit. And Dragon Tail has negative priorities, so we go first, and 1 more Giga Drain seals the deal. That means we've gotten 6 out of the 7 gym badges so far, with deathless fights. We only need 1 more gym badge, and nothing short of a world-threatening catastrophe could stop me now. Hey, what's up with the airboat? Oh! A world-threatening catastrophe! Fuck! Team Plasma decides to commit a terrorism, I think? I don't know, I'm no expert, but whatever it is, it falls on this 14-ish-year-old's shoulders to stop it from happening, I guess. We go around embarrassing numerous Plasma Grunts before we finally have our 1v1 with Zinzolin, one of the big bad evil guy's higher-ups. I lead with Concussy into Cryogonal. I consider going for Bulk Up, but opt for Hammer Arm instead, which was absolutely the right call considering how much a single Ice Beam did. Plus, Hammer Arm was a one-shot anyway. Now comes Cryogonal 2 Electric Boogaloo. I can't risk Conk to a crit here, so I switch to Magnetussi on a light screen, which really makes me wish I just sent it, but whatever. Ice Beam doesn't do much to our bulky bundle of magnets, but Light Screen really dampens the damage from Flash Cannon. Looking back, I really should have used Lapras here. Even if it would have taken longer to kill, Magnezone's HP was pretty valuable resource for this battle, and it's just getting tossed away like it's nothing. Confuse Ray from Cryogonal immediately pays off as Magneton hits itself, though another exchange next turn leaves Magnetussi as the victor of the 1v1. But Zinzolin has 1 more Pokemon, Weavile. This is a threat that I really needed Magneton's HP for, so this is going to be a stressful steer. Laprissi resists ice and overall has the best bulk of my remaining healthy team members, so I switch into her on what ends up being a Night Slash, doing just under a third of her health. Since Laprissi can't be crit, I'm not at risk to another attack, so I can get some solid damage off here. Surf does what looks to be as close to half as you can get, but now another Night Slash could do her in, so another swap is necessary. I switch into Mandibuzzi since Weavile is pretty much always clicking Night Slash here. Weavile's only ice move is Ice Shard, so the speed buff from weak armor is irrelevant. However, we are able to take one and fire off an air slash, for what's frankly pitiful damage. Now we're in a tight spot. Lapras is dead to a Night Slash. Magneton, despite resisting all of Weavile's moves, only has 30 HP and cannot take 2 hits. Conkeldurr has half of his HP, Mandibuzz is facing death in the eyes at this very moment, and Lilligant and Cottontail are not only slower than Weavile, but also weak to its stab moves. But laying it all out like that, I find the line. Right now, Weavile is 100% going to use Ice Shard. Knowing that, I can pivot into Conkeldurr through Lapras. In other words, I can switch into Lapras, tank the 4x resisted hit, and then bait out a Night Slash. He may not have a ton of HP, but Concussy should have enough bulk to take a Night Slash into a regular Slash, even if one of them crits. Let's do it. Lapras comes in, and as predicted, takes nothing from an Ice Shard. Now for another switch into Conkeldurr, who takes a Slash instead of the expected Night Slash. Conkeldurr takes 31 damage from Slash, and with only 59 HP left, a Slash crit is just over the exact amount needed to KO. But I'm running out of options. I need Concussy to clutch up here. Conkeldurr dodges the crit, and lands the Hammer Arm. This was an absolute shit show, but ultimately I think I found the safest line possible from the position I put myself in. With Zinzolin defeated and Team Plasma forced out of the city, Unova is safe for another day. The only way that the entire region could be put into jeopardy is if Drayden runs into the gym, comes back out with the DNA splicers that Team Plasma has been looking for, and shows it to me for literally no reason. If that were to happen, one of the Shadow Triad would be able to take it right from his hands and then flee the city before we have a chance to stop them. Well, it's a good thing that didn't happen, right, Drayden? We chase after the Shadow Triad and run into one of them at the gate to the east. This fight is much easier, with Zoroark using Dig for each of the Pawniards, and then using U-turn on Absol, which just barely misses the kill, so I swap out into Magneton, who finishes the job. Unfortunately, this guy was just buying time for the others to escape, so they're able to flee the scene with the DNA splicers. Damn. Well, you win some, you lose some. May as well finish up the gym challenge. We go back to Undella and take the Marine Tube, which is dope as fuck, by the way, and get to Humalao City. We have to wander around for a bit to find the gym leader and remind him of his 9 to 5 before we can actually challenge the gym, but it's not long before we can finally challenge Marlin. Petulia leads and puts Caracosta to sleep before setting up 2 quiver dances. Caracosta waking up and using Shell Smash is scary, but we put him back to sleep and kill him with a couple of Giga Drains after Sturdy saves him briefly. You can imagine how the rest of the fight went. With the 8th and final gym badge in hand, it's time to face the Pokemon League. Fine, we'll finish dealing with Team Plasma. We search Route 22 and find another weird dog when Colress approaches us out of nowhere and gives us his TV remote that works on crabs or something. This lets us head to Route 21 to continue our search for Team Plasma. On the way, this guy who really likes Roggenrola is blocking our path, saying we'll have to beat him to get past. They aren't really too threatening, they just take 2 hits each to go down since they all have Sturdy. The first 2 end up getting the chance to set up Sandstorm and Stealth Rocks respectively. Roggenrola number 3 is where things take a turn, since a critical hit explosion very nearly one-shots Lilligant on its own. She lives, but the Sandstorm is still up. So the chip damage is going to kill her, and I'll have to wear the I lost a Pokemon to a guy with 4 Roggenrolas button for the rest of my life. But by the grace of Arceus himself, the Sandstorm subsides just before it can land the killing blow. Fucking hell. I let Magneton handle the rest of the fight, but goddamn did I nearly shit myself this fight. I was also hopelessly lost trying to figure out where to go, and I'm pretty sure we didn't even need to fight this guy, so losing a Pokemon there would have been even worse. After we find Team Plasma's ship and climb aboard with the help of Marlin, who somehow was already on board, we start tearing through Plasma Grunt as we unlock the barriers blocking the way. This ultimately leads up to another encounter with Zinzolin, but I'm more prepared for it this time. Or I thought I was, until it turns out to be a double battle with Pass. And I can't believe I'm saying this, but Pass and his Samurott actually pop off in this fight. And it's a good thing he did too, cause Concussy immediately gets both crit and frozen by Cryogonal's Ice Beam, leaving him with 7 HP. Thankfully, Liepard doesn't target Conk, and then dies to Samurot's Aqua Tail. Magnetussi switches in to tank some hits as Pass proceeds to one-shot Cryogonal, Zinzolin's second Cryogonal, the Grunt's Watchhog, and finally the Grunt's Scolipede before Samurott finally goes down. But I paralyzed and damaged the Weavile, so I'd say we contributed equal amounts to this fight. He ended up getting the kill on Weavile too, by the way. We learn that Kyurem is powering this ship and has fully recovered since the attack on Appalucid. Before we can interfere, the Shadow Triad once again simply takes us out of the ship, which Zinzolin should really have just done from the start. Kyurem decides that it's time for uppies, and the ship flies away. We follow them to Giant Chasm, where the penultimate encounter of the run lies. In the grass outside the cavern, we can find Vanillish, which we'll be able to use after evolving it into Vanillux. Old Team Plasma fights New Team Plasma to buy us time to get onto the ship once more. A surprise attack actually almost works, but ultimately isn't enough to stop us from going further into the ship. The next bit isn't so much a puzzle as it is just fighting a bunch of grunts to figure out a passcode and unlock the gate. But once we do, lo and behold, it's this motherfucker again. Zoroark is in the lead and is disguised as Lapras, meaning Cryogonal won't want to use Ice Beam. Foul Play does great damage as Cryogonal uses Slash. A second Foul Play takes Cryogonal out, making way for the infamous second Cryogonal, who always goes for Light Screen. Predicting this, I stay in with Zoroark to keep doing damage. Cryogonal proves me right, and then goes down the next turn. All that's left is Weavile, and even though it's speedy, it's not enough to beat out Zoroark, who uses U-turn to nearly one-shot it. Magneton comes in on Slash, which does next to nothing. Weavile follows up with another Slash, this time of the Night variety, but even a crit isn't enough to stop Magneton from dropping him with a Discharge. Zinzolin is shocked that using the same 3 Pokemon didn't work any better than it did the first 2 times, and for some reason decides to not call on the Shadow Triad. This means that it's time to fight the captain of the ship. In a surprising twist, the most suspicious looking person I've ever seen was, in fact, evil. Or deranged, at the very least. But that doesn't change the fact that we need to beat him, so let's get to it. Colress starts with a Magnetusi of his own, also holding an Eviolite, so I hope to one-shot it with a quad-effective dig from Zoroark. Unfortunately, I didn't account for Sturdy, so Zoroark gets paralyzed by Thunder Wave after it goes to 1 HP. Colress is gonna heal this turn, so I adjust the plan. I use U-turn to break Sturdy and go to Concussy, who knows Bulldoze. Magneton does big damage with Flash Cannon, but Bulldoze doesn't kill. Really? Whatever. The speed drop lets us KO with another one the next turn, granting us more leftovers recovery, so you know what? It worked out. Judging from Magneton's damage, Magnezone would definitely take out Conkeldurr here, so I swap into Lilligant. However, Magnezone went for Thunder Wave, so now Lilligant is paralyzed as well. Discharge does light damage as Lilligant manages to fire off a Sleep Powder. This lets Conkeldurr come back in a bit more safely. It stays asleep as Conkeldurr goes for Bulldoze, leaving it on 1 HP again. Again, it's more leftovers recovery. This is intentional, I swear. Once it goes down, Beheeyem comes in and is threatening a Psychic, so I swap to Gothitelle to take the hit. Shadow Ball does less than I'd like, and Beheeyem gets the opportunity to use Calm Mind. This means that a second Shadow Ball does even less, and Beheeyem goes for Recover. This is a losing battle, so I need to change up my strategy. Gothitelle goes for Thunder Wave to paralyze Beheeyem, but its Synchronize ability gets her paralyzed as well. Beheeyem gets fully paralyzed this turn, but Gothitelle gets paralyzed the turn after and gets hit with an Energy Ball. Now she's dead to a crit, and with half my team paralyzed, I'm quickly running out of options. Switching out to Magneton is my only choice here, and Beheeyem sets up another Calm Mind as I do. A lucky full para gives me the opportunity to use Flash Cannon twice before taking a Psychic that does just under half of Magneton's health. After some deliberation, I come to the conclusion that Beheeyem is probably going to use Recover instead of going for Psychic, so I keep Magneton in and bake on Flash Cannon, lowering Beheeyem's special defense. But even better, he gets fully paralyzed once more, so Magneton can secure the kill on the next turn. That was a shit show, but the circus isn't over yet as Klinklang comes in. It can't do much to Magneton, so I stay in. It also knows that it can't do much to Magneton and uses Shift Gear until it dies. I make sure to use Volt Switch on the last hit to get my full health Lapras in before Metang hits the field. She easily 1v1s Colress's final Pokemon with a couple of Surfs, finally winning us the fight. That could have ended poorly, but Magneton proves time and again how incredible of a Pokemon it really is. After some healing, we go to face the boss of Team Plasma. Wait, he says that Colress is the boss, so what's the step above boss? Leader? Ruler? That's besides the point. We confront Ghetsis, the overlord of Team Plasma, who leaves us to deal with one of the Shadow Triad before we can interfere. After some Hammer Arms and Bulldozes, Concussy wipes his team. We aren't quite out of the woods yet though, because the other 2 Shadows appear for us to challenge. I figure it's just going to be 2 more Conk sweeps, as he starts by annihilating the next Shadow's first Pawniard just as he did before. However, that's when I make a vital mistake. I stay in against a Bayonet that knows Psychic. but it doesn't crit, meaning Conkeldurr lives and goes for a Stone Edge. Now I can just switch out and... Oh, hold on, what are you doing? He stayed in? Dude, pay attention, what are you... Oh fuck, he's got his AirPods in, he can't hear us. It's just Will-O-Wisp. Okay, he has a second chance here. Sean! Dude, you need to switch here. Come on, you need to switch here. Why is he... Bulldoze! No! No, what have you done? No! Yeah, I wasn't paying attention. I was really just clicking buttons and assumed it'd work out. The rest of the battle isn't an issue, and neither is the last member of the Shadow Triad, but I really can't understate how immense of a loss this is. Conkeldurr was a massive part of my plan to fight Ghetsis, Grimsley, and was even going to be helpful against the champion fight. This could be a run-ending loss in the long term. Even in the short term, I need to rethink my entire plan for Ghetsis now. I don't even have a Pokemon that can fly on me, so I need to take the long walk of shame back to Humalao before I can put him to rest. I spend a ton of time RNG manipulating the levels of my Pokemon I have in the box, seeing if something pops up that gives me an idea of what to do against Ghetsis and the terrifying Kyurem Black that I'll need to defeat first. After some time, I come up with a plan, but unfortunately it's gonna require a bit of preparation. And by preparation, I mean hours of grinding BP on the battle subway, continuously ending my win streaks to make sure enemy Pokemon aren't threatening, but in turn only gain 1 BP for every 7 battles. I did this until I got to 18 BP so that I could afford the TM for Hidden Power, which is going to be taught to Lilligant to make this plan work. Do or die, it's time to fight Ghetsis. After Ghetsis tries to personally add to the death counter, and swoops in with Zekrom to make his big debut. After some insane gaslighting and guilt tripping, Ghetsis uses the DNA splicers to do the unthinkable. Zekrom gets captured, and drops from Ubers to OU. The battle against Kyurem itself wasn't as terrifying as I thought it would be. When we first traveled through Chargestone Cave, we picked up a steel gem from a dust cloud. Gems are consumable held items exclusive to Gen 5 that power up moves of a specific type the first time they get used. So we can let a Escavalier use the one-time boost to launch an Iron Head that'll one-shot Kyurem. Damn, missed the damage roll. This is still fine though, since Kyurem just started powering up to use Freeze Shock, which Lapras can tank with ease. I'm not about to let Lapras take a Fusion Bolt, so I switch into Magneton, who resists everything Kyurem has. The only reason Magneton wasn't the one to lead this fight was because the damage output wasn't quite enough, but at this point a Stiff Breeze would take the dub here. Negligible slash damage and 1 Flash Cannon later, the beast falls and Kyurem is freed. Ghetsis is super mad at us for some reason, and now we get to start the real fight. But if my plan works, it might end up being much easier than it otherwise would be. Here we go. Ghetsis starts with Cofagrigus, while I'm forced to start with Escavalier, who was the lead against Kyurem. This, however, isn't necessarily too bad. Cofagrigus has Toxic, which we really don't want to see here. Being a Steel type, we shouldn't see Toxic, as we switch right into Laprosiana Protect, the best case scenario. There were also a couple more changes that I made before starting this battle that I haven't mentioned yet. One of which was going to the move relearner and teaching Laprosi the move Safeguard. And after mitigating some of the damage from Shadow Ball due to leftovers, we can finally bring out Petulia on yet another Protect. Perfect. The plan is to get off 3 Quiver Dances before taking out Cofagrigus. Once he's done and Toxic isn't a threat anymore, I can get to +4 and use a combination of Giga Drain and Lilligant's Ground-type Hidden Power to take out all of Ghetsis' team aside from Hydreigon, who should come out last, but at that point I'll have the rest of my team to whittle away at him. Lilligant sets up Quiver Dance number 1 as Cofagrigus uses his favorite move. Quiver Dance number 2 is met with a very weak Shadow Ball, though it does lower our special defense. That ultimately means nothing though. This is the last turn that Safeguard is protecting us from Toxic, so I want to use Sleep Powder now and give myself 2 chances to put Cofagrigus to sleep and keep Toxic from ruining the plan. Protect keeps Cofagrigus awake and stalls the last turn of Safeguard, so now we have 1 more shot to land a Sleep Powder. And Petulia misses, as Cofagrigus connects with a Toxic. This is catastrophic, but Lilligant should at least be able to make a dent in Ghetsis' team before the poison is too much. I know that this bastard is about to Protect, so I'm taking full advantage of it and getting off a 3rd Quiver Dance. Now Lilligant readies up for a Giga Drain, and Cofagrigus hits the double Protect. Giga Drain finally connects the next turn, and misses the kill range. The Shadow Ball drop on top of it may not make a difference in the game, but it absolutely shatters my mental. Getsis is gonna heal, so another Giga Drain is the best thing I can do to hopefully kill this thing and get some of my HP back. Of course. Another Protect blocks my next Giga Drain and forces me to switch. Yes, I could kill Cofagrigus here, but I won't heal enough to outlast Poison, and then Petulia's a goner. Magnetussi can pretty comfortably come in, shrugging off a Shadow Ball and then killing with Discharge. The crit was unnecessary, but I'd be lying if I said it didn't feel pretty good. Plus, Magneton barely took any damage, so this could have gone worse. Not by much, but what can we do other than push on? Seismitoad comes in and obviously wants to Earthquake, so Mandibuzzi is a free switch. Plus, this is probably the best use I'll get out of her for this fight. She goes for Air Slash to try to get some flinches, but the Toad responds with Muddy Water, which, of course, lowers my accuracy. It turns out that we're speed tied, so another Muddy Water comes out, but miraculously misses, as another Air Slash not only connects, but crits. I decide to switch to Dark Pulse for higher accuracy, but ironically, miss. At this point, I'm playing on full tilt. I ignore the possibility of getting crit and send another Dark Pulse, which misses again, and then get hit with Muddy Water, which Mandibuzz does live, but gets hit with another accuracy drop. Despite the petty part of me wanting to let this useless Aspertia die, I switch out to reset the drops and save Mandibuzzi's life. I switch into Lapras. Muddy Water, but no accuracy drop. Seismitoad Drain Punches for decent damage and healing, but not enough to live in Ice Beam. In comes Electros, which has nasty coverage. I truly consider for a moment to just send in Mandibuzz, cause we're still beefing, but I show restraint. The only thing on my team that can take a hit and is fast enough to hit back is Zoroark, so that's who has to come in. Acrobatics instead of Thunderbolt is nice to see, but the damage is still brutal. Foul Play won't kill on its own, but a crit will. Without a crit, Electros gets to go for Thunderbolt. And Zoroark lives? A second Foul Play is a guaranteed kill, and just like that, it's starting to seem like even after everything, we could win this fight deathless. Obviously Zoroark is switching out here, and it has to be into Escavossi, who takes a Night Slash from Drapion. After thinking about my options for a moment, I decide on a strategy that I'm not completely confident in. Drapion uses Earthquake, doing a fair bit of damage, and in response, Escavalier sets up Swords Dance. We'll have to take another Earthquake, but Ironhead knocks Drapion out with the attack boost, bringing in Toxicroak. He's almost certainly going for Brick Break, and I'm unsure whether it kills or not.
Between Kyurem and now, Escavossi has really proven himself, but I need him to do it just one more time. He takes the kill, and
that leaves Getsis with just one Mon left. In comes Hydreigon, and there's only one Pokemon that can take us home. Magneton comes in and takes hefty damage from a Dragon Rush. Thankfully, the next one misses and lets Magneton fire off a Thunder Wave. Flash Cannon does great damage, while Hydreigon gets fully paralyzed, which all but seals our victory. Another Flash Cannon takes Hydreigon to the brink. All I can do is fire off one more Dragon Rush to crit and kill Magneton. Unequivocally, the best encounter of the entire run, who got us out of so many tight spots and was the reason so many other team members lived, who only died to that crit because of the 21 damage that Cofagrigus did earlier. Lapras can finish off Hydreigon and win us the battle, but the damage has been done. This was maybe the unluckiest battle I've ever faced in Pokemon, and what's worse is it all could have been avoided. I was so caught up on Lilligant using Sleep Powder to get an extra turn that I overlooked such a simple solution. Lilligant had 3 turns under Safeguard to use Quiver Dance with basically no risk. Once it ran out, all I needed to do was have her hold a Pecha Berry. We wouldn't have needed to risk landing Sleep Powder or hitting a 75% damage range. I should have had 5 Pokemon fully healthy, ready to outlast Hydreigon and let it kill itself with Life Orb damage. If the final stretch of the game was going to be tough without Conkeldurr, it's going to be a Herculean task without Magneton. This also means we no longer have a Rock Resist again, which is a pretty common type to see, so that'll be fun to deal with. After Getsis gets taken to a farm upstate, I meet up with N to grab the HM for Waterfall before depositing Magneton. There's one more encounter that I can get though, now that we can use Waterfall. I head down to Route 14 to make my way to Abundant Shrine, fighting a few trainers along the way. God fucking damn it. Sure would have been nice to have a Pokemon that resists rock-type moves to switch into. The silver lining is that we can access Abundant Shrine and catch the final Pokemon of the run, Ninetales, who is also weak to rock. But at least it's some much needed type diversity to help from all the birds and bugs that Mark wants to smash. And that type diversity will be very helpful in Victory Road, because the trainers here are no joke. I'll need to tread carefully to avoid any more casualties. Motherfucking Gigalith. The worst part about losing Lapras specifically is that I somehow have no one left alive who can learn Strength. So now I need to dedicate a team slot to someone who can learn Strength, but won't be able to battle. Victory Road has a couple more close calls, but ultimately we're able to make it through without any more deaths. But does it even matter? It's starting to look more and more like all of the previous deaths are catching up to me. The encounters I have left could probably take on a couple of members of the Elite Four, but there's no way that this box has what it takes to beat the entire league. Losing Lapras, Conkeldurr, and Magneton were all massive blows to this run's chances of beating the Elite Four. And at this point, we would need a miracle to win this thing. Zoroark just soloed Chantal, Grimsley, and Caitlyn? Let's take a quick step back. Actually, even further back than this. Before challenging the Elite Four, I had a few errands to run. I grinded Blue Shards in Twist Mountain until I was at 10, enough to teach Dark Pulse to Zoroark via this move tutor in Lentimos Town. Then I worked my way through Route 23, solving this legitimately tricky strength puzzle, before making my way all the way up here to grab the TM for Taunt. The final piece of preparation was using the last of my heart scales to remember a few moves, namely Nasty Plot on Zoroark, Iron Defense on Escavalier, and Heal Order on Vespiquen. Oh yeah, we're actually unironically bringing Vespiquen to this Elite Four. The gifted Zorua always has the same IVs in nature, meaning it always has 30 IVs across the board. Miraculously, that makes Hidden Power a 70 base power fighting type move, which is not only the strongest it could be, but is also exactly what we need to take on Grimsley. Now Zoroark has a completely revamped moveset of Dark Pulse, Nasty Plot, Taunt, and Hidden Power fighting. So, Peachow, if you're somehow watching this, I've got Zoroark's Black and White 2 tiering figured out for you. You're welcome. Anyway, Chantal was a complete pushover. I was so confident that I didn't even give the rest of the team any items to hold. Just Expert Belt on Zoroark. With the Expert Belt on Zoroark, each of Chantal's Pokemon go down to a single Dark Pulse each. I also made sure to edge Zoroark as close to leveling as possible so he can get as many levels as possible. For Grimsley, Zoroark had to take a Fake Out from Liepard, but it's a Liepard, so I wasn't really worried. After that, Zoroark could outspeed and use Taunt to prevent Liepard from using Attract. Nasty Plot gives us the power we need to one-shot the Scrafty in the back, and all we have to do is take one more Light Tickle from Liepard. Sweep number 2, done. For Caitlyn, we swapped the Expert Belt for a Chesto Berry. We don't even need to bother with Taunt for this one. Zoroark Nasty Plots on Musharna's Yawn, which is enough to KO everything with another 4 Dark Pulses, the Chesto Berry waking him up after the Yawn activates. Marshall unfortunately can't be swept by a frail Dark type as easily, so Zoroark's gonna take a well-earned rest. Instead, Escavalier is gonna be the one to embarrass Marshall. Storm Throw is always a critical hit. Unless, of course, you have Battle Armor like Escavalier does. So he can set up 3 Iron Defenses and then 3 Swords Dances, all while getting healed by leftovers, and Marshall can't do shit about it. A series of Iron Heads takes his whole team down, and what I thought would be a nightmarish Elite Four run has been completely handled by 2 Pokemon. That means there's just one battle left. With Zoroark back in the lead, it's time to face off against champion Iris. She leads with Hydreigon, and Zoroark comes out disguised as Vespiquen. I'm hoping to bait out a Charge Beam, but Flamethrower is still fine to see. After a nasty plot, Zoroark takes down Hydreigon with Hidden Power. In comes Druddigon, who threatens to kill with a number of moves. After running the calc, it seems that Dark Pulse has exactly a 50% chance to kill Druddigon. It's literally a coin flip. The safe thing to do here would be to switch out. After all, Zoroark has done so much work up to this point. But imagine... with an insane flinch, Zoroark secures the KO, and Iris brings in her ace, Haxorus. It's holding a Focus Sash, so it's guaranteed to live a hit. However, if Zoroark manages to score one more flinch, the flinch doesn't happen. But I think single-handedly taking down 14 out of the 22 Pokemon in the league is more than enough. Rest easy, bud. We got it from here. My intended answer for Haxorus was actually, believe it or not, Vespiquen. The plan is to poison Haxorus with Toxic and stall it out with a combination of Heal Order and Bug Buzz. And worst case scenario, she can Destiny Bond to take the beast down with her. Surprisingly though, Iris doesn't heal Haxorus and just dies to the first tick of toxic damage. Questionable play, but either way, Vespiquen prevails. In comes Archeops, who could do massive damage to anyone I switch in here. So... listen, she died for the sake of the team. Escavalier can take anything Archeops dishes out and retaliate with an Iron Head to one-shot in return. Iris brings out Aggron next. I can't do much with Escavalier, so Lilligant swaps in for him. She takes just under half from the Rock Slide. If you recall, Lilligant has Hidden Power Ground, but it's only 40 base power. So even though Aggron is quad weak to it, Lilligant doesn't kill in one shot. Aggron, however, just barely doesn't kill Lilligant with any of his moves. And if I've learned one thing about this game, it's how much this damn AI loves using speed control moves when they don't see a kill. I put it all on the table, making the bold prediction that Iris wants to use a Totemize. So we'll fight fire with fire. Petulia uses Quiver Dance, powering up Hidden Power enough to one-shot next turn. And Aggron uses a Totemize. Our own speed boost means we still outspeed Aggron, and this rock type doesn't have Sturdy, so Hidden Power takes the kill. All that's left is Iris's Lapras. A reminder of the team members I lost up until now, all those who are still standing, and the ones who are finishing this, right here, right now. Petulia does massive damage with Giga Drain, and thanks to the healing and the special defense buff from Quiver Dance, survives the incoming Ice Beam. One more Giga Drain seals the deal, knocking out Lapras, defeating Iris, and winning us the run despite all odds. This run was an absolute roller coaster, but this Elite Four embodied exactly what I love about Pokemon and specifically Nuzlocking. Trying to find the winning team in my heavily damaged box of encounters ended up being a tough puzzle, but once I solved it, it was incredibly satisfying. This video took a lot longer for me to get done than I thought it would, and I'm really sorry about the long wait. Life gets in the way sometimes, but I'm glad it's finally finished, and I hope you all enjoyed it. Shout out to Markiplier, whose video will be linked in the description, and thank you for taking the time to watch through to the end. One day I'll learn how to properly do an outro, but that day is not today.